My name is Anna. I am 26 years old, and I live in a small town in the south of England. When I was young, I dreamed of a simple, happy life, a small house, a loving husband, and 1 or 2 children. I believed that love would be easy, that it would simply arrive and stay. But I was wrong. I met Daniel when I was 22. He was 25, tall, with brown hair and bright blue eyes that made people stop and notice. He had a way of smiling that made everyone around him feel lighter. He was funny, confident, and always had something to say. We met at a friend's party. The music was loud, the lights were warm, and he came over to me with that easy smile. "Can I have your number?" he asked. I laughed, but I gave it to him anyway. The next morning, I woke up to a message from him. "Would you like to meet for coffee?" I said yes. We met in town, sitting across from each other in a small cafe. The coffee went cold, but our conversation didn't. He made me laugh. I made him smile. When we said goodbye, I already knew I wanted to see him again. We met again and again. He called every night. He brought me flowers once, small white ones wrapped in paper. After 3 months, we were inseparable. One evening, while we were walking by the river, I told him, "I love you." He looked at me, smiled, and said, "I love you too." I believed him. I believed every word. We were together for a year. I worked at a supermarket, and Daniel worked at a car garage. We didn't have much money, but we were happy, or at least I thought we were. Then, one morning, I woke up feeling sick. I thought it was just a cold, but the next day it happened again. My best friend Emma said, "Maybe you're pregnant." I laughed it off, but my heart began to race. I bought a test, went home, and waited. My hands shook as I looked at the result. Positive. I sat there staring, my mind spinning. That night I went to Daniel's flat. "I have news," I said. He looked at me, smiling. "What is it?" "I'm going to have a baby." The smile faded. He looked at the floor, silent for what felt like forever. Finally he said, "Are you sure?" "Yes," I whispered. "I did a test." He stood up, walked to the window, and looked outside. "This is not a good time," he said quietly. "I'm not ready to be a father." Something inside me went cold. "But we love each other," I said, my voice trembling. He said nothing. He just whispered, "I need time to think." That night, he didn't hold me. In the morning, he left early. "See you later," he said, but I knew I wouldn't. Everything changed after that. He stopped calling. He stopped answering my messages. I went to his flat one day and knocked on the door. No answer. I sent him one last message. He replied, "I can't do this. I'm sorry." That was the last message I ever got from Daniel. I sat on my bed and cried for hours. I cried until there were no tears left. I was pregnant, and I was alone. When I told my parents, my mom cried with me. My dad said nothing for a long time. Then he said, "We are here for you, Anna." I moved back to my parents' house. I felt like a child again, but I wasn't one anymore. I was going to be a mother. The first months of my pregnancy were hard. I felt tired all the time. My belly began to grow, and with it, so did the silence from Daniel. He never called, not once. Every night I stared at my phone, hoping it would light up with his name. It never did. I went to the doctor alone. I saw the tiny heartbeat on the screen, my baby's heartbeat. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. I smiled and cried at the same time. That small sound reminded me that even if Daniel was gone, I still had someone to live for. I worked at the supermarket until my body couldn't handle it anymore. My coworkers were kind, but I could see the pity in their eyes. I didn't want pity. I wanted strength. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this. Then one night, the pain started. It was sharp and deep. My mom rushed me to the hospital. The nurse took one look at me and said, "You're going to have the baby tonight." I was terrified. The pain came and went like waves, stronger each time. My mom held my hand. I cried and screamed, but I kept going. Hours later, I heard a soft cry. "It's a girl," the nurse said. They placed her in my arms, tiny, warm, and perfect. I looked at her and whispered, "Hello, baby." "I'm your mom." I named her Sophie. She was beautiful, with soft skin and dark eyes that looked up at me like she already knew me. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. When I came home, everything felt new and fragile. My mom helped me, but at night it was just me and Sophie. She cried a lot. I didn't sleep much. Sometimes I sat on the bed, rocking her in my arms, whispering, "It's okay, my love. Mommy's here." Some nights I cried too, from exhaustion, from loneliness, from the quiet ache of missing someone who had chosen to disappear. Daniel never came. He never called. One day I saw him in town. He was walking down the street. For a moment our eyes met. Then he looked away. I wanted to shout at him, to ask, "How can you leave your baby?" But I said nothing. I just pushed Sophie's stroller and walked away. When Sophie was 5 months old, I went back to work. My mom watched her while I was gone. I missed Sophie every second, but I needed the money. I worked long hours, smiled at customers, and tried to ignore how much my back hurt. At night, I came home exhausted. I fed Sophie, changed her, bathed her, and kissed her soft little head. She was my whole world. Sometimes I sat in the kitchen after she fell asleep, staring at the wall, holding a cup of cold tea. I whispered to myself, "You're tired, Anna, but you're strong. You're doing this." And then I smiled, because I was. Sophie grew fast. When she was 6 months old, she learned to sit up by herself. She smiled more every day. Her laugh filled the house like sunlight. I didn't have many friends anymore. My old ones drifted away. They had jobs, parties, boyfriends. I stayed home and watched cartoons with my baby. But I didn't mind. Sophie gave me a reason to wake up every morning. When she turned 1, she started walking, shaky and proud. I clapped my hands and said, "Good job, my brave girl." Her little laugh made the world feel warm again, but life was never easy. Money was always a problem. I bought baby food, nappies, warm clothes, but never anything for myself. I wore the same old jeans and shirts. My boss wasn't kind when I had to miss work because Sophie was sick. "You can't miss so many days," he said. "My baby needs me," I replied. "Be careful. You need this job," he warned. I was scared of losing my job, scared of not being enough. But when Sophie smiled at me, all the fear faded a little. One night, Sophie had a fever. Her head was hot, her body trembling. I held her all night, whispering prayers I hadn't said in years. "Please get better," I whispered. By morning, she was still sick. My mom took us to the clinic. The nurse gave Sophie medicine and said, "She'll be okay." I cried from relief. I kissed Sophie's warm cheek and promised, "Mommy will always keep you safe." She grew stronger again. She learned to walk, to talk, to laugh with all her heart. By the time Sophie turned 2, she was full of energy and questions. She loved to dance, to play with socks, to run through the grass at the park. Watching her play under the sun made every tear, every sleepless night, every lonely day worth it. And when I saw Daniel again, across the park, holding hands with another woman, I didn't cry. I just looked away and held Sophie closer. "You don't need him," I whispered. "You have me. I'll give you everything." A few weeks after seeing Daniel in the park, I received a letter from the council. They said a small flat was available for me and Sophie. It wasn't big, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a tiny kitchen. But it was ours. I felt proud, excited, nervous. My parents helped me pack. My dad carried boxes, and my mom folded Sophie's little clothes. Sophie giggled as we loaded her toys into a box. When we arrived, the flat was quiet and empty. The walls were white, the floor smelled of fresh paint. I placed Sophie's bed near mine and a photo of us on the small table. That night, we sat on the floor, eating toast and drinking tea. Sophie laughed when she dropped her spoon. I picked it up and smiled. "This is our home now," I said. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. Life in the new flat was hard but steady. I worked, paid rent, cooked simple meals, and read bedtime stories. Sophie loved books with animals, especially the one with the blue bear. "Bar is funny," she said, giggling. I kissed her cheek and replied, "You're funny too, my love." Some nights when the flat was quiet, I felt lonely. I missed adult conversation, missed being held, but I never missed Daniel. I didn't want someone who left. I wanted peace, and I had it. One day at work, a woman came to my till with a baby in a stroller. She looked tired like me, but she smiled and said, "It's hard, isn't it?" I nodded. "Yes, but they're worth it." She smiled again and said softly, "You're doing a good job." Those words stayed in my heart. That night, I held Sophie close and whispered, "You are my sunshine." She giggled and gave me a big hug. I was still tired, Still poor. But I was not broken. I was strong, because I was a mother. Sophie turned 3. She could talk more, ask endless questions. Why is the sky blue? Where do birds sleep? I answered the best I could, smiling every time. She loved singing, dancing, and making me laugh. Our days were simple. Breakfast, daycare, work, bedtime. But I didn't mind. It was a quiet kind of happiness. Each morning she looked up at me and said, "Good morning, Mom." And that was all I needed to start my day. One day, I received a letter from Sophie's daycare. It said, "Sophie is ready for school next year." My eyes filled with tears. My little girl was growing up. I told her the news and she clapped her small hands. "School, I want a pink bag." I laughed. "You'll get one and new shoes too." That weekend we went shopping. She looked at every bag. Too big, too small. Then she saw one, pink with shiny stars. She hugged it tight. At home, she wore it around the flat, walking like a proud little student. I laughed, but inside I felt a mix of joy and sadness. My baby was no longer a baby. Time passed. Sophie turned 4. Her hair grew longer. Her laugh grew louder. She made friends at daycare and told me stories every evening. "Mom, my friend Lucy has a dog. Can we get one?" I smiled. Maybe one day. I worked longer hours to save money, taking every extra shift I could. Some nights I came home exhausted, my feet aching. But when Sophie ran to me shouting, "Mommy, you're home!" everything felt right again. Then one evening, while playing with her doll, Sophie asked, "Mom, do I have a dad?" My hands froze. My heart ached. I sat beside her. "Why do you ask?" "At school, my friend said her dad picks her up." "Do I have a dad too?" I took a deep breath. "Yes, you do." "But he doesn't live with us." She looked at me, confused. "Why not?" I swallowed the pain and said gently, "He made a choice. He didn't want to stay." She stared at me for a moment, then smiled softly. "But I have you." Tears filled my eyes. I hugged her close. "Yes, my love. You have me, and I will never leave." That night, after she slept, I stood in the kitchen and cried quietly, not from sadness, but from release. A few months later, Sophie's teacher stopped me outside the classroom. "You're Sophie's mom?" she asked. "Yes. She's doing very well, kind, curious, happy." "You're doing a wonderful job." Those words melted my heart. Maybe my best was enough after all. When Sophie started school, she wore her new uniform and that pink bag with stars. She held my hand tightly on the first day. "Will you wait for me?" she asked. I smiled. "Yes, I'll always wait for you." She walked into her classroom, turned back, and waved. I waved too, then sat on a bench outside and cried, not from sadness, but from pride. Our life stayed simple. I still worked long hours. I still counted every coin. But every morning, Sophie smiled at me and said, "Good morning, Mom." That was more than enough. One Sunday, we went to the park. Sophie ran and laughed, chasing butterflies with other children. I sat on a bench, watching her. A man sat beside me and said, "Is she your daughter?" I nodded. "Yes," he smiled. "She looks happy." I looked at Sophie, her bright eyes shining in the sunlight. "She is," I said. He nodded. "That's all that matters." I watched her run, her laughter echoing in the air. I thought about everything, the tears, the nights alone, the fear, the strength. Then I smiled. Yes, she was happy. And I did that alone. If you liked my story, please like, comment, and share. More simple and emotional stories are coming soon.